If you want more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video. On January 12, 2010, the ground in Haiti began to violently tremble. The time was 4:53 p.m. local time. This was not just a minor tremor, it was a catastrophic magnitude 7.0 earthquake. Its epicenter was located approximately 25 kilometers west of Port-au-Prince, the nation's densely populated capital city. The shaking was shallow, occurring only about 13 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. This shallowness meant the energy released by the tectonic plates grinding against each other was transferred directly and brutally to the structures and people on the surface. Within a single minute, the vibrant, chaotic life of the city was brought to a devastating halt, replaced by a roar of collapsing buildings and the dust of utter destruction. The initial shock was followed by a series of powerful aftershocks. One aftershock reached magnitude 5.9, another registered magnitude 5.5. Each new tremor brought down already weakened buildings and sent fresh waves of terror through the survivors. The infrastructure of Port-au-Prince and surrounding towns was simply not built to withstand such a force. Léogâne, Jacmel, concrete buildings pancaked into rubble, homes, schools, hospitals, critical government ministries. The lack of enforced building codes and the widespread use of substandard construction materials meant that countless structures failed almost instantly, trapping tens of thousands of people beneath the debris. The immediate aftermath was a scene of complete and utter devastation. A thick cloud of dust and debris filled the air, choking the sky and obscuring the sunset. The sounds of the city were replaced by the groans of twisting metal, the crash of falling concrete, and then, an eerie silence broken by the cries of the injured and the trapped. The National Palace, the seat of Haiti's government, lay in ruins with its iconic white domes collapsed. As darkness fell on January 12th, the true scale of the horror began to unfold. With no electricity, the city was plunged into near-total blackness, illuminated only by sporadic fires and the faint glow of cell phone screens. Survivors stumbled through streets that were now obstacle courses of rubble and debris. The first response came not from organized rescue teams, but from the people themselves. Neighbors began the desperate work of digging through the wreckage with their bare hands. Friends began the desperate work of digging through the wreckage with their bare hands. Complete strangers began the desperate work of digging through the wreckage with their bare hands. They used pieces of rebar, scraps of wood, and any tool they could find to try and reach the voices calling out from beneath the concrete. These initial efforts were heroic but tragically insufficient against the sheer mass of the collapsed structures. The medical system ceased to exist. Haiti's largest hospitals, including the General Hospital in Port-au-Prince, were either destroyed or severely damaged, forcing doctors and nurses to evacuate their patients into the streets. Medical professionals who survived the quake set up makeshift clinics in open squares and parking lots. They worked with virtually no supplies, using torn clothing for bandages and whatever limited resources they could salvage. The number of injured was overwhelming, with people suffering from crush injuries, broken bones, and severe lacerations. Communication was almost entirely lost. The earthquake had severed telephone lines and brought down cellular networks. This information vacuum created immense confusion and panic. Families were separated in the chaos, unable to find out if their loved ones were safe. By the morning of January 13th, the first full day after the earthquake, the world began to grasp the magnitude of the disaster in Haiti. News reports, initially sparse and unconfirmed, were now being supplemented by shocking images and first-hand accounts from journalists and aid workers on the ground. The pictures showed a capital city reduced to rubble bodies lying in the streets and dazed survivors wandering through the ruins. These powerful visuals broadcast worldwide triggered an immediate and massive international response. Governments mobilized non-governmental organizations, mobilized individuals, mobilized pledges of aid began to pour in from all corners of the world. The first international search and rescue teams arrived within 24 to 48 hours. Team, United States team, Iceland team, Spain team, China. They brought sophisticated listening devices, search dogs, heavy cutting and lifting equipment. Their mission was a race against time. The chances of finding survivors alive in the rubble diminished rapidly with each passing hour. They faced enormous logistical challenges, including blocked roads, a lack of local coordination, and the sheer number of collapsed buildings that needed to be searched. While rescue teams focused on finding the living, the humanitarian crisis for the survivors deepened. Millions were left homeless without food, without clean water, without shelter. In the weeks following the earthquake, the humanitarian response shifted from immediate search and rescue to a massive relief operation. The primary goals were to provide medical care, food, water, and shelter to the vast population of survivors. Field hospitals established by international medical teams became crucial centers for treating the tens of thousands of injured. These facilities performed countless surgeries, amputations, and other life-saving procedures. However, the demand for medical services far outstripped the available capacity, and medical personnel had to make difficult decisions about who to treat. The distribution of aid was a monumental challenge, hampered by destroyed roads, security concerns, and the lack of a functioning local government to coordinate efforts. The problem of shelter was one of the most visible and persistent challenges. An estimated 1.5 million people were left homeless by the earthquake. They gathered in over 1,000 makeshift camps that sprang up across the capital and beyond. International agencies and NGOs worked to distribute tents and tarpaulins to provide some basic protection from the elements. However, these sprawling encampments were overcrowded and lacked basic sanitation facilities, creating a secondary public health crisis. The rainy season, which began in the spring, turned many of these camps into muddy, unsanitary quagmires, increasing the risk of waterborne diseases. The threat of disease became a tragic reality in October 2010, 9 months after the earthquake. A cholera outbreak, a disease that had not been present in Haiti for a century, began to spread rapidly through the population. The source of the outbreak was later traced to a river contaminated by waste from a United Nations peacekeepers base. The Haitian population had no natural immunity to the disease, and it spread like wildfire through the contaminated water sources and crowded displacement camps. The cholera epidemic added another layer of suffering to an already traumatized nation, sickening hundreds of thousands and killing thousands more over the subsequent years, compounding the tragedy of the earthquake. Despite the massive influx of international aid, totaling billions of dollars in pledges, the delivery of this assistance was fraught with problems. The sheer number of NGOs on the ground, often dubbed the Republic of NGOs, led to a chaotic and uncoordinated response. The long-term recovery and reconstruction of Haiti proved to be an immensely complex and slow process. The initial phase focused on the monumental task of clearing the rubble. It was estimated that the earthquake generated over 10 million cubic meters of debris, enough to fill thousands of Olympic-sized swimming pools. Clearing the streets, collapsed building sites was a necessary first step before any meaningful rebuilding could begin. This process took years and was a constant, visible reminder of the scale of the destruction. Efforts to rebuild homes and infrastructure were slow to get off the ground. A key challenge was the issue of land tenure. Many residents of Port-au-Prince did not have formal titles to the land where their homes once stood, creating legal barriers to reconstruction. The international community and the Haitian government struggled to develop a coherent strategy for rebuilding. Debates raged over whether to simply rebuild what was lost or to build back better, with improved building codes, safer urban planning, decentralized development to ease the pressure on the capital. While many new earthquake-resistant homes were eventually built, their number was small compared to the immense need. Years after the earthquake, hundreds of thousands of people still lived in temporary camps, a testament to the slow pace of reconstruction. While the most visible, large encampments were gradually closed, many families simply moved into new informal settlements on the hillsides around Port-au-Prince, often in areas vulnerable to landslides and flooding. The transition from temporary shelters to permanent housing was one of the most significant failures of the post-earthquake response. The lack of affordable and safe housing options left a large portion of the population in a state of prolonged displacement and vulnerability, continuing their ordeal long after the ground had stopped shaking. The 2010 earthquake left deep and lasting scars on Haiti. The death toll, estimated to be over 220,000 people, represented a catastrophic loss of life. The economic cost was estimated at nearly $8 billion, more than 120% of the country's GDP. The disaster exposed and exacerbated pre-existing problems of poverty, weak governance, and environmental degradation. While the reconstruction effort has seen some successes, such as the construction of new hospitals and schools, Haiti continues to face profound challenges. The legacy of the earthquake is not just in the buildings that have been rebuilt, but in the ongoing struggle for political stability, economic opportunity, and resilience against future disasters. If you want more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video.